She was drowning in silk and diamonds when a man who emptied trash cans taught her how to breathe. And in saving her life, he gave her a reason to live. The champagne in Valentina's glass cost more than most people earned in a week. She stared at the golden bubbles rising and bursting, wishing she could disappear with them. Around the table, 6 men in handmade suits discussed territory and percentages. Her father sat at the head, silver-haired and cold-eyed, his presence a gravitational force that bent everyone toward him. To his right, Carlo Messina, the captain her father had chosen for her, rested a possessive hand near her chair, not touching her, not yet, but the promise of ownership hung in the air like cigar smoke. "Your daughter's very quiet tonight, Vincent," Carlo said, his voice smooth as oil over broken glass. Her father didn't look at her. Valentina knows when to speak and when to listen. She smiled, the smile she'd perfected over 26 years. Empty, pleasant. Safe under the table, her nails dug crescents into her palm. The Grand Astoria Hotel penthouse restaurant glittered around them, all crystal chandeliers and marble columns. Her father owned the building, along with half the city's real estate, blood money dressed in architecture. She'd grown up learning not to ask questions about the businesses, the late-night calls, the men who came to the house and sometimes never left. "The Calabrese family is testing boundaries," one of the men said, pulling out his phone. "Word is they're moving into the South District." Her father's expression didn't change, but the temperature of the room dropped. "Giovanni, show her the pictures." Valentina's stomach turned to ice. She knew what came next. She'd seen it before, the photos of enemies, the casual discussion of violence, her father's expectation that she remain unmoved, a test of loyalty, a reminder that sentiment was weakness. Giovanni slid his phone across the table. On the screen, family, mother, father, 2 small children outside a grocery store, ordinary people, innocent. "The Calabrese captain's sister," her father explained, his voice flat, "married some accountant, 2 kids, they live on Maple Street." "Vincent, you can't be serious," Carlo said, but his tone carried excitement, not protest. "Civilians." "I'm sending a message." Her father lifted his glass. "No one tests my territory. Giovanni, make it clean tomorrow night." The world tilted. Valentina's breath caught in her throat. She'd witnessed her father's cruelty before, but always against people in the life, criminals killing criminals. This was different. This was a mother who probably packed school lunches, children who didn't know their uncle's choices would end their lives. "Excuse me," she whispered, standing abruptly. "I need to powder my nose." Her father barely glanced at her. Carlo started to rise, but Vincent waved him down. "Let her go. Wedding planning makes women emotional." Ozzy walked carefully across the restaurant, feeling their eyes on her back. Once through the doors, she bypassed the elegant powder room and pushed through a service entrance marked "Staff Only." The hallway beyond was fluorescent lit and narrow, smelling of industrial cleaner and steam from the kitchens. Her heels clicked against linoleum as she walked faster, her breath coming in short gasps. The walls pressed in, the air thinned. "Tomorrow night, 2 children, make it clean." Her vision blurred. She reached for the wall, stumbling, and her body made the decision her mind couldn't. She collapsed. David Chen pushed his cleaning cart down the corridor, the wheels squeaking their familiar rhythm. 11 p.m. The night shift suited him. Fewer people, fewer questions, fewer eyes that slid past him like he was furniture. He'd been invisible for 3 years now. After the accident, after the funerals, after the long dark months when getting out of bed felt like lifting a car, invisibility became a kind of mercy. The Grand Astoria hired him without questions. Criminal record, no. References. His military discharge papers had been enough. 42 years old and cleaning toilets in a hotel his younger self would have stayed in. Funny how life worked. He emptied a trash can with practiced efficiency, noting the waste, half-eaten gourmet meals, champagne bottles, the casual excess of people who'd never been hungry. No judgment, just observation. The world was what it was. His phone buzzed, a text from his sponsor. "Checking in, you good?" David replied, 3 years, 2 months, 14 days, still good. The AA meetings kept him tethered, so did the work. There was honesty in a mop bucket. You cleaned the mess, wrung out the dirty water, started fresh. Simple, unlike the chaos his life had been. He moved toward the service elevator, intending to head up to the penthouse level. Tuesday nights, the private restaurant generated the most waste, rich people celebrating violence with expensive food. He'd learned not to pay attention to the conversations he sometimes overheard, safer that way. The elevator doors opened on the 3rd floor, and he saw her immediately. A woman in a midnight blue dress, crumpled against the wall like a broken doll. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs, her breath coming in desperate, shallow gasps. Panic attack. He recognized it instantly. He'd had enough of his own. David's first instinct was to keep walking, not his business. She was clearly from upstairs. The dress probably cost more than his monthly rent. People like that had people to help them. Security, friends, family. But her face. She looked up and their eyes met. In that moment, David saw something he recognized, someone drowning in plain sight. Have you ever felt invisible in a room full of people? Drop a comment below and share your story. His feet moved before his brain approved the decision. "Ma'am," he said softly, parking his cart and kneeling a respectful distance away. "Can you hear me?" She nodded but couldn't speak. Her hands clutched at her chest. "Okay, you're okay. This is a panic attack. It feels like dying, but you're not dying. I need you to breathe with me." He kept his voice calm, steady, the same voice he'd used to talk soldiers down from the edge. "In through your nose, 4 counts. Hold it. Out through your mouth, 4 counts. Can you try?" And she tried, failed, gasped. Tears streaked her makeup. "That's okay, let's try again. Watch me." He breathed slowly, deliberately, exaggerating the movement of his chest. "You're safe right now. Right here in this ugly hallway, you're safe. Nothing is happening except your brain lying to you. We're going to prove it's a liar together. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Slowly, painfully, her breathing began to sync with his. Minutes passed. His knees ached against the linoleum. He didn't move. When her breath finally steadied, she looked at him with eyes so filled with gratitude and confusion that David felt something crack open in his chest, a door he'd welded shut years ago. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." "Nothing to apologize for," he said. "Happens to the best of us." She laughed, a broken, desperate sound. "You don't know who I am." "No, ma'am, should I?" "I'm not." She stopped, seeming to really look at him for the first time, at his janitor's uniform, his weathered face, the kindness in his eyes that didn't match the subservience she probably expected. "You're not afraid of me." "Well, should I be?" Before she could answer, voices echoed from the stairwell, security, probably looking for her. Fear flashed across her face. Without thinking, David stood and offered his hand. "There's another exit, if you need it." She stared at his outstretched hand like it was a door to another world. Then Valentina, daughter of the most dangerous man in the city, took the hand of a janitor named David Chen, and everything changed. David led her down a service corridor she'd never known existed, a narrow passage that snaked behind the hotel's elegant facade. The voices faded behind them. Her hand stayed in his for 3 seconds longer than necessary before she pulled away, suddenly aware of the intimacy. "Where are we going?" Her voice still trembled. "Somewhere quieter. You need a minute before you go back up there." He stopped at a door marked "Rooftop Access Maintenance Only" and pulled out a key ring. "This okay, or would you rather I call someone?" The thought of calling anyone, her father's security, Carlo, the handlers who monitored her every move, made her stomach turn. "The roof is fine." He pushed open the door and cool night air washed over them. The rooftop was utilitarian, HVAC units, satellite dishes, water tanks, but the view beyond was breathtaking. The city sprawled below, a galaxy of lights against the darkness. Valentina walked to the edge, gripping the safety railing. Her legs felt weak. Her entire body felt weak, like she'd run a marathon through fire. David kept his distance, leaning against the doorframe, giving her space. "You want to talk about it?" "No," then surprising herself. "I overheard something terrible, and I can't stop it, and I can't unknow it, and her voice cracked. "I'm sorry, you don't need to hear this." "I'm a janitor, ma'am. People forget I'm there all the time. I've heard a lot of things I'm not supposed to hear." He said it simply, without bitterness. Sometimes talking to a stranger is easier than talking to people who know you. She turned to study him, mid-40s maybe, Asian features graying at the temples, tired eyes that had seen too much but somehow remained kind, hands that had worked hard, scarred knuckles, calloused palms. There was something solid about him, something real in a way nothing in her life had been real for a very long time. "What's your name?" she asked. A pause, David. "I'm Valentina." "I know." At her surprised look, he added, "Your picture's in the lobby. Congratulations to Vincent Russo's daughter on her engagement. Big display, lots of flowers." She looked away. "That's not a congratulations. That's a sale announcement." "Arranged marriage." "Is there any other kind in my world?" The bitterness in her voice surprised her. She never let it show, never let the mask crack. But something about this rooftop, this stranger, this moment, she was so tired of performing. David was quiet for a long moment. "You know what I learned in the military? There's always a choice. Sometimes all the choices are terrible, but there's always more than one path, even when it doesn't feel like it." Were you infantry? Special forces, 2 tour in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq. He said it matter-of-factly, like mentioning a previous job. Saw a lot of people in impossible situations. Some found a way out, some didn't try. And which one were you? His expression flickered pain old and deep. I got out, but I left pieces of myself there. We all did. Valentina moved away from the edge, sitting on a concrete block near one of the air conditioning units. Her dress would be ruined. She didn't care. What happened when you came back? Tried to build a normal life, got married, had a daughter, became a high school teacher, history and civics. Thought I could save the world with lesson plans. His voice softened with memory. Emma, my daughter, she was 7, obsessed with butterflies, had this whole plan to build a butterfly garden. He stopped. Valentina waited, sensing the cliff edge of his pain. Drunk driver, 3 years ago. They died instantly, my wife and Emma. I was at a school board meeting, came home to police cars in the driveway. His voice remained steady, but his hands trembled slightly. Spent the next year trying to drink myself to death. Lost the teaching job, lost the house, lost everything that mattered. Ended up here pushing. As a mop, trying to remember how to be human. I'm so sorry. The words felt inadequate, tiny against the weight of his loss. Me too, he met her eyes, but I'm still here. That's worth something. Some days more than others, but still. Valentina felt tears sliding down her face again, not for herself this time, but for this man who'd lost everything and still stopped to help a stranger having a panic attack. You didn't have to help me. You could have kept walking. Yeah, he offered a small, sad smile. But I didn't, and neither did you. You could have had security drag me away for touching you. People like you usually do. People like me, she repeated. You mean rich, entitled, Mafia princess. I mean people who have learned not to see the help. No accusation in his voice, just truth. But you saw me. Even in the middle of a panic attack, when I knelt down, you actually looked at me. Not through me, at me. That's rarer than you'd think. Something shifted in the air between them, a recognition deeper than words. 2 people drowning in different oceans, catching sight of each other across the water. I heard my father order a hit tonight, Valentina said suddenly. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. On a family, innocent people, a mother and 2 children, because he wants to send a message to their uncle. And I sat there in my designer dress, drinking champagne, and I smiled. Because that's what I'm trained to do. Smile and stay silent and pretend I don't see the blood on everything I touch. David's expression didn't change. No shock, no judgment. What are you going to do about it? What can I do? If I warn them, I'm dead. If I go to the police, my father owns half of them, and the other half would never believe me, and even if they did, I'd still be dead. If I run, she laughed bitterly. I've thought about running 1,000 times, but there's nowhere he couldn't find me. His reach is everywhere. So you're going to marry the man he chose and watch innocent people die and pretend it doesn't kill something in you every time. It wasn't a question. It was a mirror, and Valentina hated what she saw in it. What else is there? She whispered. David pushed off from the doorframe and walked toward her, not too close, respecting her space, but close enough that she could see the conviction in his eyes. There's always something else. It might be terrifying. It might cost you everything. but there's always another choice. Easy for you to say, you have nothing left to lose. Exactly, his voice was gentle but firm, which means I know what losing everything actually looks like. And I'm here to tell you, living a life that's not yours, that's losing too, just slower, just quieter, but it still kills you in the end. Valentina stood, suddenly angry, at him, at herself, at the impossible situation crushing her from all sides. You don't understand, my father is a man, not a god, not fate. David held her gaze. I've seen warlords in the desert who thought they were untouchable. I've seen empires that looked eternal. They all fell. Everything falls eventually. The only question is whether you're brave enough to push. I'm not brave, I'm terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. He glanced toward the door. You should probably get back before they send a search party. But Valentina, he used her name for the first time, and it sounded different in his voice, like he saw the person beneath the title. If you ever need someone to talk to, someone who has nothing to gain or lose from your choices, I'm here most nights. Third floor service corridor, the invisible man. She wanted to say something profound, something that captured the strangeness and significance of this moment. Instead, she said, "Thank you for breathing with me." Any time. Valentina walked to the door, then paused. David, that family, the one on Maple Street, do you know how someone might hypothetically warn them without it being traced? A long silence, then, hypothetically, burner phone, public place with no cameras, maybe a library or church, anonymous tip to a news station, not police, and then destroy the phone immediately. He studied her carefully, hypothetically. She nodded slowly, hypothetically. Well, that's a dangerous game. Everything in my life is dangerous. At least this time, it might save someone. As she reached for the door handle, David's voice stopped her. Valentina, you're braver than you think. She looked back at him, this janitor, this veteran, this broken man who'd somehow held her together when she was falling apart. How do you know? Because you're still asking questions, still fighting. A lot of people in your position stop doing that. They just accept you haven't. That counts for something. Valentina left the rooftop, but David's words followed her down. In the elevator, she caught her reflection, mascara-smudged dress. Wrinkled, hair disheveled. She looked like she'd been through a war. Maybe she had. When she returned to the penthouse restaurant, her father barely glanced up, feeling better. Yes, sorry, wedding stress. The lie came easily. It always did. Carlo touched her shoulder, possessive, proprietary. She didn't flinch. She'd learned not to. But inside, something had shifted. The panic that had sent her fleeing earlier had transformed into something else, something harder, something that whispered impossible things. There's always another choice. 3 floors below, David returned to his cleaning cart and his invisible routine, but his hands shook slightly as he picked up the mop. He'd been clean for 3 years, 2 months, and 14 days. He'd survived losing everything. He'd built a fragile piece from the ruins of his life. And in 15 minutes on a rooftop, a woman in a blue dress had cracked that piece wide open. Because David Chen, who'd learned to be nobody, had just done the most dangerous thing possible. He'd seen Valentina Russo, really seen her. And she'd seen him back. The burner phone cost $12 at a convenience store 3 blocks from Valentina's apartment. She bought it with cash, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, feeling like a character in a bad spy movie. This is insane, she thought, reckless, suicidal. But she made the call anyway. The news station answered on the third ring. Valentina disguised her voice, deeper, rougher, and delivered the message. The Messina organization is targeting the Romano family on Maple Street. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. 2 children will die if you don't investigate. She hung up before they could trace it, smashed the phone with a hammer in an alley dumpster, walked home with her heart thundering so loud she was sure everyone could hear it. That night, she dreamed of a man with kind eyes teaching her how to breathe. David requested a schedule. A change the next morning. Something wrong with night shift, his supervisor asked. Just need a change, maybe move me to the corporate offices, different building. This about that Russo daughter. Security mentioned she was in the service areas last night. David kept his expression neutral. Don't know what you're talking about. But his supervisor wasn't stupid. Listen, Chen, you're a good worker. Keep your head down, don't make waves, stay invisible. That family, they're dangerous. Whatever you think you saw or heard, forget it. Already forgotten. Except it wasn't. That night, David couldn't sleep. He kept seeing her face, the terror, the desperate hope, the way she'd looked at him like he was human instead of furniture. He opened his phone to his sponsor's contact, then closed it. What would he say? I met a mob boss's daughter, and now I can't stop thinking about her. That sounded insane even in his head. Besides, she was probably already back in her world, surrounded by security and wealth and her terrifying father. Their moment on the rooftop was just that, a moment, an anomaly. It didn't mean anything. It couldn't mean anything. He had to stay invisible, safe, sober, alive. You're braver than you think, he'd told her. Hypocrite, he couldn't even brave picking up the phone. 4 days later, Valentina returned to the Grand Astoria. She told herself it was for a legitimate reason. Her father was meeting with lawyers about property transfers. She needed to pick up documents. Completely normal. Nothing to do with hoping to see a janitor who'd probably forgotten she existed. But her heart raced as she walked through the lobby, and her eyes scanned every service corridor. He wasn't there. Different shifts, different workers, different everything. The disappointment felt disproportionate and dangerous. She was being stupid, reckless. What did she expect? A fairy tale. She lived in a nightmare, and janitors didn't rescue Mafia princesses. She picked up the documents and turned to leave, and nearly collided with him. David stood in the hallway, pushing his cart, and their eyes met with the force of a car crash. For a second, neither moved, neither breathed. Hi, Valentina said stupidly. Hi, David glanced around nervously. You shouldn't, I'm not supposed to. I need to give you something. She pulled an envelope from her bag. For helping me the other night. His expression hardened. I don't want your money. It's not. I'm not interested. Whatever you think happened, whatever you're feeling, it was just two people having a conversation. That's all. You should go back to your life, and I should go back to mine. The rejection stung more than it should have. Valentina felt something flare inside her. Anger, hurt, desperation. I saved them. David froze. What? The family on Maple Street. I made an anonymous call. The news station investigated. Police raided my father's warehouse and found weapons. The hit got called off. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Those children are alive because of what you said to me on that rooftop. His face went pale. Jesus Christ, do you have any idea how dangerous if your father finds out? He won't. Well, you can't know that. I was careful. Careful isn't enough with men like him. David's voice rose, then he caught himself, glancing around. You need to stay away from me, far away, for both our sakes. I don't want to stay away. The words came out raw, honest. I haven't stopped thinking about. An alarm shrieked through the building. Sprinklers burst to life. Someone shouted, "Fire in the kitchen." Chaos erupted. Staff ran past them. Guests poured into the hallways. David grabbed Valentina's arm. Come on, service stairs. They ran together, but the stairwell was packed with evacuating workers. Someone pushed. Valentina stumbled. David caught her, pulling her sideways into a service elevator just as the doors started to close. Although the elevator descended 2 floors, then jolted to a stop. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency lighting that cast everything in eerie red. A mechanical voice announced, "Elevator service temporarily suspended. Please remain calm. Emergency personnel have been notified." In the sudden silence, Valentina heard her own breathing, quick and shallow. David's hand was still on her arm. He released it quickly, stepping back to the opposite wall. How long? Valentina asked. Could be 10 minutes, could be an hour. Fire protocols shut down everything until the buildings cleared. They were alone, trapped, together. David slid down the wall to sit on the floor. After a moment, Valentina did the same, the expensive envelope forgotten between them. You really saved them. David's voice was quiet. Oh, yes. That took guts. You told me there's always another choice. I didn't think you'd actually. He ran a hand through his hair. Valentina, what you did was incredibly brave and incredibly stupid. Story of my life lately. Despite everything, David laughed, a short, surprised sound. Yeah, mine too. The elevator hummed around them. Somewhere above, sirens wailed, but in their small, suspended box, time felt different, elastic, intimate. Why did you really come back today? David asked. Valentina could lie, should lie. Instead, I wanted to see you again. Well, why? Because for 15 minutes on a rooftop, I felt like a real person, not a possession, not a pawn, just me and I. She stopped, the vulnerability too raw. I don't have anyone in my life who sees me that way. David was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. You don't know me, Valentina. You don't know what I've done, who I've been. I'm not a good guy. I'm just a broken man trying to stay sober and survive. You stayed with me when you could have walked away. One decent act doesn't make me decent. It counts for something. Not enough, but his voice lacked conviction. Valentina shifted closer, not touching, but close enough to see his face in the red emergency light. Tell me one true thing about yourself, not the tragic parts, not the resume, just something real. David considered, I miss teaching. I miss that moment when a student's eyes light up because they finally understand something, like watching a light switch flip on. I miss being the person who got to flip that switch. You did that for me, on the rooftop. You taught me I could breathe again. That's not the same, wasn't it? The elevator shuddered. Somewhere, machinery groaned back to life. Their time was almost up. David, Valentina's voice was barely audible. I don't know what this is, but I know I'm not imagining it, this thing between us. Tell me you feel it too. Tell me I'm not crazy. He looked at her then, really looked, with an intensity that made her breath catch. You're not crazy. But feeling something doesn't mean acting on it. Your world and mine, they don't touch. They can't touch. What if I want them to? Then you're asking for both of us to get hurt. Maybe I'm already hurt. Maybe I've been hurt my whole life, and I'm just now realizing I don't have to accept it. The elevator lurched back into motion, descending toward the lobby. Their moment was ending. Soon the doors would open, and reality would flood back in. David stood first, offering his hand to help her up. She took it, and for just a second, his fingers tightened around hers. If you really want to be free, he said quietly, you can't do it halfway. And you can't do it for me. It has to be for you. The doors opened. Hotel staff and firefighters filled the lobby. The smell of smoke had faded. False alarm, someone announced, just a grease fire, quickly contained. Valentina stepped out of the elevator, then looked back. What if I want to do it for both of us? Before David could answer, she disappeared into the crowd. And he stood there, holding an envelope she'd left behind, wondering if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. Or if he was about to. The envelope sat on David's kitchen table for 3 days like a live grenade. He lived in a studio apartment above a laundromat, 400 square feet of second-hand furniture and military discipline, everything in its place, nothing unnecessary, a life reduced to essentials because anything more felt like tempting fate. On the 4th day, he opened it. Inside, no money, just a single photograph and a handwritten note. The photo showed a little girl, maybe 6 years old, with dark curls and a gap-toothed smile. She wore a princess costume, the cheap kind from a party store, and held a wilting dandelion like a scepter. Behind her, slightly out of focus, stood a younger Valentina, maybe 16, caught mid-laugh. The note read, David, this is Lucia, my half-sister, one of my father's indiscretions with a housekeeper. When her mother died, my father wanted to send her to an orphanage. I fought to keep her. For 2 years, she was the only real thing in my house, the only person who loved me for me, not for what I could give her or who my father was. Then one day she disappeared. My father said she'd been placed with a good family. I was 18. I believed him because I needed to, because the alternative was too horrible. I found out the truth 3 years ago. She's in a state facility upstate. Severe developmental delays. My father decided she was defective and inconvenient. She's 11 now. She doesn't remember me. I visit her once a month. I tell my father I'm at the spa. You asked why I came back. This is why. Because you're the first person in 10 years who made me remember what it felt like to fight for something, to fight for someone. I don't know what I'm asking from you. Maybe just to understand that I'm not who you think I am. I'm not brave or noble. I'm just trying to be the person Lucia thought I was when she looked at me like I hung the moons. Thank you for saying me. Ovay. David stared at the photograph until his vision blurred. That little girl's smile, it reminded him of Emma. The same uncomplicated joy, the same belief that the world was good and the people in it were safe. He picked up his phone and dialed before he could stop himself. Hello, Valentina answered on the first ring, breathless. It's David from the hotel. La pause, I didn't think you'd call. I didn't think I would either. He looked at the photo again. Tell me about Lucia, everything. They met at a diner 40 minutes outside the city, neutral territory where neither of them would be recognized. Valentina arrived dressed down, jeans, a simple sweater, her hair pulled back. Without the armor of designer clothes, she looked younger, more fragile, more real. David already had coffee waiting. She slid into the booth across from him, and for a moment neither spoke. The air between them felt charged, dangerous, inevitable. How is she? David asked finally. Lucia. Valentina's hands wrapped around the coffee mug like it was the only solid thing in the world. Happy mostly. The facility is good, they're kind to her. She loves art therapy, paints these incredible abstract pieces. Doesn't speak much, but she hums constantly, little melodies. Does she know who you are when you visit? No, I'm just the nice lady who brings her chocolate and sits with her while she paints. Valentina's voice cracked. Sometimes I think that's better. If she remembered me, she'd remember that I let them take her, that I wasn't strong enough to stop it. Oh, you were 18. I was a coward. You were a kid in an impossible situation. David's voice was firm. You're still visiting her, still paying attention. That counts. Does it when she's still locked up and I'm still living in my father's house, wearing his blood money, smiling at his parties? David leaned forward. Valentina, why are you really here? What did you want from me? She met his eyes. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe I just needed to sit across from someone who doesn't want anything from me, who doesn't see me as Vincent Russo's daughter or Carlo's future wife or a useful piece on someone's chessboard. You see me as a person, just a person. Do you know how rare that is? And you see me as more than the guy who empties your trash. I see you as the man who saved my life, twice now, once on that rooftop, and once in an elevator when you reminded me why I'm fighting. The waitress came by to refill their coffee. They waited in silence until she left. Tell me about your wife, Valentina said softly. Your daughter, if you want to. David's first instinct was to deflect. He never talked about them. Not to his sponsor, not in therapy, not to anyone. The grief was a locked room he visited alone. But something about Valentina, the rawness of her own pain, the way she'd trusted him, with her secrets, made him want to try. Sarah was a nurse, he began, the words coming slowly, like pulling nails. We met at a VA hospital. I was there for PTSD treatment after my second tour. She didn't treat me like I was broken, just like I was human. That was huge. Most people looked at me like I was a grenade with the pin pulled. Valentina nodded, understanding in her eyes. Emma was unexpected. We'd been married 6 months when Sarah got pregnant. I was terrified. I'd seen what war did to people. Didn't know if I could be a father, if I had anything good left in me to pass on. But the moment they put her in my arms, he stopped, his throat tight. She was perfect. This tiny, perfect thing that needed me to be better than I was, so I tried to be. What was she like? A smile ghosted across David's face. Fearless, curious about everything. She'd pick up worms and spiders, demand to know their names and what they ate and why God made them. Sarah said she'd be a scientist someday, or a veterinarian, or president. Emma thought she could be all three. She sounds incredible. She was. The past tense still felt like a knife. The last thing she said to me was, "Daddy, don't forget, tomorrow we're building the butterfly garden." I told her I wouldn't forget. I promised. His voice broke. Valentina reached across the table and took his hand. He didn't pull away. I spent a year trying to die after they were gone, David continued. Alcohol, pills, whatever would make the pain stop. I'd sit in Emma's room, surrounded by her stuffed animals and her art projects, and I'd beg God or the universe or whoever was listening to let me trade places with them. But nobody answered. And eventually I realized, if I drank myself to death, I'd be killing the last person on earth who remembered exactly how Emma laughed or how Sarah hummed while she cooked. I was the only keeper of those memories, so I had to stay alive, had to stay sober, not for me, for them. Well, that's why you became a janitor, somewhere anonymous where nobody would ask questions. Somewhere I could be nobody, just a guy with a mop, existing day to day. It felt manageable, safe. He looked at her. Until you. Until me, she echoed. You made me remember what it felt like to care about someone, to want to protect someone. I thought I'd buried that part of myself with my family. Turns out it was just dormant. Valentina's eyes glistened. I'm scared, David. Of what? Of this, of what I feel when I look at you, of how much I want to be the person you think I am. She wiped at her eyes angrily. I've been engaged to Carlo for 6 months. The wedding is in 3 weeks. My father has built his entire alliance strategy around this marriage. If I run, if I even try, people will die. Me, definitely, but also anyone who helps me, anyone he thinks enabled me. He'll burn the world down to make a point. So you're going to go through with it? I don't know. Her voice rose then. Dropped to a whisper. I don't know. I keep making these spreadsheets in my head, the costs and benefits of running, the probability of survival, the collateral damage. It's like a math problem with no solution. Every path leads to blood. David was quiet for a long moment, thinking. When I was deployed, we had this saying, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. You can strategize all you want, but when the moment comes, you have to trust your gut. your instinct, that little voice inside that knows what's right, even when it's terrifying. What if my instinct is wrong? What if it's not? If you had to choose between a safe life you hate and a dangerous life you love, which would you pick? Let us know in the comments. They talked for 3 hours about Lucia and Emma, about the people they'd lost and the people they'd failed, about the weight of guilt and the impossibility of redemption, about what it meant to be alive versus just existing. When they finally left the diner, the sun was setting. In the parking lot, Valentina turned to him. David, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Okay. If I ran, if I actually found a way to disappear, would you come with me? The question hung in the air like a held breath. David's heart hammered against his ribs. Every rational part of his brain screamed no. He'd built a fragile peace. He was sober, stable, alive. Running with a mob boss's daughter was suicide. But he looked at her, really looked at this woman who visited a sister who didn't remember her, who'd risked her life to save strangers, who saw worth in a janitor nobody else noticed, and he realized something terrifying. He was already halfway gone. Yes, he heard himself say, if you ran, I'd come with you. Valentina's eyes widened. David. But he continued, you have to be sure, not 80%, not 90, 100% sure, because once we start this, there's no halfway, no going back. We either commit completely or we walk away now and never see each other again. I can't decide right now. There's too much. I know I'm not asking you to decide now. I'm asking you to think about it, really think about it. And when you're ready, when you're absolutely certain, you let me know. But Valentina, he stepped closer. Don't do this for me. Don't run because you think I'm your savior or your escape route. Do it because you want your life back, because you want to be free. Can you promise me that? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I promise. They stood in the parking lot as darkness fell, two broken people on the edge of something impossible and irreversible. Then Valentina did something that changed everything. She kissed him. It was brief, gentle, almost chaste, but it felt like a detonation. Every nerve ending in David's body lit up. Every carefully constructed wall crumbled. When she pulled away, her voice was barely a whisper. Thank you for reminding me what hope feels like. Then she got in her car and drove away, leaving David standing in the parking lot, tasting possibility and terror in equal measure. He called his sponsor that night. I think I'm in trouble, David said. What kind of trouble? The kind where I know exactly what I should do, and I'm probably going to do the opposite anyway. His sponsor was quiet for a long moment. Is she worth it? David thought about Valentina's eyes, her courage, the way she'd held his hand while he talked about Emma, the photograph of a little girl she refused to abandon. Oh yeah, he said, she is. Then God help you both. The secret meetings became a lifeline for both of them. They were careful, different locations, burner phones, random times, a park at dawn, a library in the afternoon. Once, a community theater's back row during a matinee where the play was so bad nobody paid attention to anything but the stage. Valentina learned that David had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard, that he'd memorized most of Shakespeare from teaching high school English, that he couldn't cook to save his life but made excellent coffee, that he had nightmares most nights but never complained. David learned that Valentina spoke 3 languages, played piano beautifully when she thought no one was listening, and had a photographic memory for faces and conversations, a survival skill developed from watching her father's world, that she'd wanted to be an architect as a kid, that she'd never been allowed to have friends her own age, that she could pick most locks and knew 6 ways to disable someone twice her size. My father insisted on self-defense training, she explained one afternoon as they walked through a botanical garden. He said if I was going to be a liability, I should at least be a difficult liability to kidnap. That's deeply messed up. Welcome to my childhood. She stopped to examine a rose, running her finger along a thorn. Everything in my life has been transactional. Every gift came with strings. Every kindness had a price. Even my education was just preparation for being a useful trophy wife. Is that why you're afraid to run? Because you don't trust that freedom is real? She looked at him, surprised. How did you? Because I felt the same way when I got sober, like sobriety was just another prison, another set of rules. Took me a long time to realize that discipline isn't captivity, that choosing something is different from having it forced on you. They sat on a bench surrounded by flowers, the afternoon sun warm on their faces. For a moment, they could almost pretend they were normal people on a normal date. Tell me about your butterfly garden, Valentina said, the one you promised Emma. David's expression softened with memory. She wanted monarchs mostly. Read somewhere that they migrate thousands of miles. She loved that idea, something so small and fragile making this impossible. Journey, we spent weeks planning it, ordered milkweed seeds, drew up designs. She insisted on a fairy statue in the center because butterflies need magic. Did you ever build it? No, after the accident, I couldn't. The plans are still in a drawer somewhere. Couldn't bring myself to throw them away. Valentina was quiet for a moment then. When this is over, when we're safe, will you build it with me, for her? David felt his chest tighten. Valentina. I'm serious. I want to do this. I want to help you finish what you started with Emma. And I think she'd like knowing that something beautiful came from all this pain, don't you? He couldn't speak, could only nod. She took his hand, threading her fingers through his. They sat like that for a long time, connected by grief and hope, and something neither of them had the courage to name yet. 2 weeks before the wedding, Valentina showed David her escape plan. They met in his apartment the first time she'd been there. She arrived after midnight, dressed all in black, looking like a cat burglar. David would have laughed if the situation weren't so dire. She spread documents across his kitchen table. I've been siphoning money for 3 months, small amounts my father won't notice. It's in offshore accounts under fake identities. I have passports, real ones, not forgeries. A contact at the State Department owed me a favor. New names, new backgrounds, clean papers. David studied the documents. Elena Martinez and Thomas Chen, married couple from Sacramento. We needed to be connected legally. Married makes the documents more believable, harder to separate if someone investigates. You've been planning this for months. Since the night we met on the rooftop, she met his eyes. I didn't know I was planning it for us. At first, I thought I'd go alone, but then we found each other. Oh, yes. David pointed to a red folder. What's this? Valentina hesitated. Insurance, everything I know about my father's operation. Names, locations, financial records. Enough to put him and his top lieutenants away for life. If we run and he comes after us, if we get cornered, I can trade this to the FBI for protection. That's nuclear option territory. I know, her voice was steady, but I won't live in fear forever, David. I won't spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. If it comes down to his freedom or ours, I choose ours. David pulled her close. She fit against him like she was made to be there. You're sure about this? Once we do it, there's no going back. I've never been more sure of anything. She looked up at him. Are you? He thought about his empty apartment, his invisible life, the years of just existing. Then he thought about butterfly gardens and second chances, and this impossible woman who'd crashed into his world and reminded him what living actually meant. I'm sure, he said. When he kissed her, it was different. From the parking lot kiss, deeper, more desperate, full of all the things they couldn't say. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. David, Valentina whispered against his lips, I think I'm falling in love with you. I know I'm falling in love with you. Well, this is insane. Completely insane. We're going to die, aren't we? Probably. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips again, but at least we'll die free. She laughed, actual, genuine laughter, and it was the most beautiful sound he'd ever heard. They spent the rest of the night planning, going over every detail, every contingency. The execution date, 3 days before the wedding. The route, south through Virginia, then west. The safe house, a cabin in Montana David's military buddy owned, off the grid and untraceable. As dawn approached, Valentina gathered her documents. I need to visit Lucia one more time. Say goodbye, even if she won't understand it. Want company. Really? And if we're doing this, we're doing it together, all of it. The state facility was 3 hours north, a low, sprawling building that tried hard to look cheerful and mostly succeeded. Valentina signed them in as visitors, using her real name for the last time. Lucia was in the art room as always. She'd grown since the photograph, taller, more angular, but the same gap-toothed smile. She hummed while she painted, lost in her own world. Hi, Lucia, Valentina said softly. I brought someone to meet you. This is David. Lucia looked up, studying David with curious eyes. Then she smiled and went back to painting. They sat with her for an hour. David told her about butterflies, how they transformed, how they traveled, how they were stronger than they looked. Lucia listened, still humming, occasionally nodding. When it was time to go, Valentina kissed Lucia's forehead. I love you, little sister. I'm going to make sure you're taken care of, always. In the car, David asked, is the money you're leaving for her care? Your father won't touch it. It's in a trust, legally separate. My grandmother set it up before she died, made me the trustee. It's the one thing he can't touch. Lucia will be fine, better than fine, actually. When he's arrested, the state will probably place her in a better facility or find her a foster family. She looked out the window. Maybe one day when it's safe, I can come back, try again, be the sister she deserves. You already are, David said. You never gave up on her. That's everything. 3 days later, Valentina Russo disappeared. And David Chen disappeared with her. The escape went perfectly for exactly 48 hours. They left on a Tuesday morning, Valentina telling her security she was going to the spa, David calling in sick to work. They met at a rest stop 20 miles outside the city, switched to the car David had bought cash 2 weeks prior, and drove south. For 2 days, they were free. They stopped at roadside diners and cheap motels. Valentina had never stayed anywhere that cost less than $300 a night. She was fascinated by the scratchy towels and the vending machine ice. David taught her to pump gas. She taught him Italian phrases. They held hands across diner tables and fell asleep tangled together in narrow motel beds. It felt like a dream, like they'd slipped through a crack in reality into a world where Vincent Russo didn't exist and the past didn't matter. On the third morning, in a motel outside Richmond, David's phone rang. Not his regular phone, the burner. The one only 3 people had the number to: Valentina, his sponsor, and his military buddy in Montana. Chen, his buddy's voice was tight. You need to abort now. David's blood went cold. What happened? I had visitors yesterday, 2 guys in expensive suits asking about you. Wanted to know if I'd seen you, if I owned property, if we were still in contact. I played dumb, but David, they knew. Somehow they knew about Montana. How is that possible? Nobody. I don't know, but you can't come here. It's compromised. Valentina sat up in bed, reading his expression. What's wrong? David ended the call. They found us, or they're close. They know about Montana. That's impossible. I was so careful. Her eyes widened. My phone. Oh God, my phone. You said you left it at home. I did, but she pressed her hands to her face. I used it one last time, the night before we left. I texted Lucia's facility to make sure her trust payment went through. I used a VPN. I was careful, but if my father has been monitoring everything, if he has the right tech, he could have tracked your digital footprint, seen the pattern of where you'd been going, cross-referenced with my background. David was already packing their bags. We need to move now. They were in the car in 5 minutes, heading west on back roads. David's mind raced through contingencies. They had cash fake, IDs, and Valentina's insurance folder. But if Vincent Russo was really hunting them, money and documents wouldn't matter. He had resources that made the military look amateur. We should split up, Valentina said suddenly. You could still get away. Alone, you're nobody to him. It's me he wants. Not happenings. David, be reasonable. No, his voice was firm. We're in this together. That was the deal. They drove for 6 hours, switching highways randomly, watching for tails. By evening, they'd made it to a small town in West Virginia. David pulled into a parking lot behind a shuttered factory. We'll stay here tonight, sleep in the car, keep moving at first light. Valentina nodded, but she looked shattered. The adventure of escape had curdled into grim survival. I'm sorry. This is my fault. I should have been more careful. Hey, David took her face in his hands. This isn't on you. We knew the risks. I thought I was smarter than him. I thought I'd planned for everything. Tears spilled down her cheeks. What if I've killed us both? You haven't. We're going to figure this out. But even as he said it, David saw movement in the rearview mirror. 3 black SUVs pulled into the parking lot, boxing them in. David, stay calm. Let me handle this. The SUV's doors opened. 8 men emerged, professional, armed, faces David recognized from Valentina's briefings about her father's inner circle. And walking toward them, flanked by 2 bodyguards, was Vincent Russo himself. Valentina made a small, broken sound. He came personally. He never comes personally. That bad. That's worse than bad. That means he's not here for negotiation. Vincent Russo was 72 but moved like a much younger man. Silver hair perfectly styled, suit that probably cost more than David's car. His face was calm, almost pleasant. That was the most terrifying thing about him. He looked like someone's grandfather, not a monster. He knocked on David's window. Polite, patient. David rolled it down. Mr. Chen, Vincent said, his voice cultured and warm. I believe you have something that belongs to me. She's not property, David said evenly. No, she's my daughter, and you've kidnapped her. I came willingly, Valentina said, her voice stronger than David expected. He didn't kidnap me. Vincent's eyes flicked to her, and for just a moment, David saw real emotion there, something like hurt, buried under layers of control. Valentina, sweetheart, I know you've been under a lot of stress. Wedding planning, it affects some women very strongly. Come home, we'll get you help. This whole episode can be forgotten. I'm not coming home. Yes, you are. Vincent's voice didn't rise, but the temperature dropped 20 degrees. Because if you don't, Mr. Chen here will be found in pieces across 3 states. As will his sponsor, Marcus, is it? Nice man, 3 years sober, has a teenage daughter, and that military friend in Montana, the one with the wife and newborn twins. David's hands tightened on the steering wheel. You're a smart man, Mr. Chen, Vincent continued. Former special forces. You understand leverage. You understand that sometimes the brave thing is surrender. My daughter is emotional right now, not thinking clearly. But you can think clearly. You can save a lot of lives by doing the right thing. The right thing, David repeated. You mean letting you drag her back to marry a man she doesn't love while you continue using innocent people as chess pieces. Vincent smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. I mean preventing unnecessary bloodshed. Valentina, last chance, get out of the car. Valentina looked at David. Her eyes were drowning in despair and love, an impossible choice. He saw her making the calculation, his life versus her freedom, saw her reaching the only conclusion her heart would allow. "I love you," she whispered. "Remember that." Then she opened the door. Valentina, no. But she was already climbing out, standing before her father with her chin raised, defiant even in defeat. Vincent gestured to one of his men. "Take her to the car, gently. She's had a difficult week." "Father, please," Valentina tried, but the guard was already guiding her away. Vincent turned back to David. "And now for you." Two guards yanked David from the car. He didn't resist. He'd calculated the odds in the first 30 seconds and knew fighting would only get people killed. They forced him to his knees on the asphalt. Vincent stepped closer, studying David like an interesting insect. "You must be quite something, Mr. Chen, to have turned my daughter's head so completely. She's usually so practical." "She's in love," David said, "but you wouldn't understand that." "Wouldn't I?" Vincent's expression flickered, something ancient and painful. "I loved my wife, Valentina's mother. She died when Valentina was 6, cancer. I couldn't save her, no matter how much money I spent, how many doctors I called. I learned then that love is a weakness, a liability. It's cost that makes you vulnerable. It's also what makes you human." "Perhaps, but humans are fragile." Vincent pulled out a gun casual, like checking his watch. "Valentina needs to learn that actions have consequences, that running from responsibilities ends badly. And you, Mr. Chen, are going to teach her that lesson." David understood. Vincent wasn't going to kill him. That would make him a martyr, a tragic love story. Instead, he was going to destroy him publicly, humiliate him, make Valentina watch as proof that escaping was futile. One of the guards forced David's head up. Valentina was 30 feet away, being held by two men struggling. "Don't hurt him. Please, father, I'll do anything." Vincent looked at his daughter. "Say goodbye to your janitor, sweetheart. Tell him what he really was to you." "What?" "Tell him the truth, that this was all a game, that you were using him for a little rebellion. Before settling into your real life, tell him he meant nothing." Valentina's face went white. "I won't." "Then he dies, right here, right now, and so does Marcus, and so does the Montana friend's entire family. Say the words, Valentina, or I will erase everyone this man has ever cared about from existence." David saw her breaking, saw her being torn between the truth and survival, and he realized Vincent had won, not with bullets, with leverage, with the knowledge that Valentina's capacity for love was also her weakness. "It's okay," David said loudly, catching her eyes. "Say what you need to say, I understand." Valentina shook her head, tears streaming. "David." "Say it," Vincent ordered, "or I start with his sponsor. I have a man outside Marcus's apartment right now." The silence stretched like piano wire about to snap. Then Valentina's face changed, went cold, empty. She pulled herself up straight, wearing the mask David had seen her wear at the hotel that first night, the one that made her look like her father's daughter. "He's right," she said, her voice dead. "This was a mistake, a stupid, impulsive mistake. I was bored and she looked at David with perfect contempt. You were convenient, a distraction. Do you really think I'd throw away my life for a janitor? The words hit like physical blows. David knew they weren't real, knew she was saving him, but hearing them from her mouth, seeing the cruelty in her eyes, it was almost perfect. You were so easy, she continued, and now there was a cruel little laugh in her voice. So desperate to play hero, so convinced that you were special, but you're not, you're nobody, and I'm Vincent Russo's daughter. We don't end up with nobody. Vincent smiled, satisfied. There, the truth at last. He gestured to his guards. They hauled David up, and one drove a fist into his stomach. He doubled over. Another blow caught his jaw. His vision sparked. That's enough, Vincent said. Leave him alive. Let him. Remember this night. Let him remember what happens when you reach above your station. They dropped David on the ground. Through blurry vision, he saw Valentina being loaded into an SUV. She didn't look back. The vehicles started up. Within 2 minutes, they were gone. David lay on the cold asphalt as the sun set, bleeding and broken, listening to the sound of Valentina's freedom driving away. He'd lost everything again. And this time he'd seen it coming. Hours later, David managed to drive to a hospital, told them he'd been mugged. They patched him up. Cracked ribs, bruised kidney, split lip. Nothing permanent, nothing that mattered. He checked into a motel and stared at the ceiling. His phone, his real phone, which had been in the car, buzzed with a text from his sponsor. Are you okay? Had some scary guys asking questions, but they left. What's going on? So Vincent hadn't killed anyone. It had all been threat, leverage, psychological warfare. The most effective kind. David texted back, false alarm. Everything's fine. But nothing was fine. He pulled out the photograph Valentina had given him, Lucia in her princess costume, Valentina laughing in the background. He thought about butterfly gardens and second chances, and the woman who'd made him believe redemption was possible. You were convenient, a distraction. He knew she'd been lying, knew she'd said those things to save his life, but the words still echoed, because part of him, the part that had been broken for 3 years, whispered that maybe it was true, maybe he'd imagined the connection, maybe desperate people just grasped at each other in the dark and called it love. He was nobody, a janitor with a dead family, and a barely held together sobriety. And she was Vincent Russo's daughter. What the hell had he been thinking? David closed his eyes, and for the first time in 3 years, 2 months, and 28 days, he wanted a drink more than he wanted to breathe. Oh, hey. Reached for his phone to call his sponsor. But his hand fell short, and he just lay there in the dark, completely, utterly alone. 2 weeks passed like a funeral procession. David returned to the city, to his apartment, to his job. The hotel took him back without questions. Turnover was high in janitorial work, and reliable employees were rare. He pushed his cart through the same hallways, cleaned the same floors, existed in the same invisible spaces. But everything had changed. He moved through life like a ghost, going through the motions of survival. Meetings, work, sleep, repeat. His sponsor watched him with worried eyes but didn't push. Sometimes people needed to sit with their pain before they could move through it. At night, David lay awake and replayed every moment with Valentina, searching for signs he'd missed, evidence that it had all been manipulation, but he couldn't find any. Every memory felt real, her laugh, her vulnerability, the way she'd kissed him like he was. Oxygen. You're nobodies. Maybe that was the truest thing she'd ever said. On the third week, David's supervisor called him into the office. Chen, you've got a delivery. Guy said it was personal, insisted I give it to you directly. The manila envelope, no return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper with an address in the Bronx and a time, 8 p.m. Friday, tomorrow. No signature, no explanation. David knew he should throw it away. This was how people got killed. Mysterious meetings, anonymous invitations. Everything about it screamed trap. He went anyway. The address belonged to a community center in a rundown neighborhood, the kind of place that ran after-school programs and food banks on donated time and exhausted hope. David arrived at 8 p.m. exactly, half expecting Vincent Russo's men to be waiting. Instead, he found an elderly woman locking up. You David Chen. Oh yes, ma'am. Someone left something for you, said you'd know what to do with it. She handed him a key and a storage unit number. Units in the basement. Lock up when you're done. The basement smelled like old paper and pine sol. David found the unit, a small storage space filled with boxes. He opened the first one. Documents, hundreds of them. Financial records, meeting transcripts, photographs. Everything Valentina had compiled on her father's organization. Her insurance folder, times 10. The second box contained a laptop with a sticky note, password, butterfly garden, watch the video first. David's hands shook as he opened the laptop. One file on the desktop, for David, MP4. He clicked it. Valentina's face filled the screen. She looked exhausted, her eyes red from crying. The video was dated the day after their capture. David, her recorded voice said, if you're watching this, it means you found what I left for you. And it means I'm either married to Carlo or dead, because those are the only two outcomes my father is allowing. She took a shaky breath. I need you to know that everything I said in that parking lot was a lie. Every word. You're not nobody. You're not convenient. You're the bravest, kindest, most real person I've ever known, and her voice broke. I love you. I'm so desperately in love with you that it terrifies me, and I'm so sorry. Sorry I wasn't strong enough to fight for us. Sorry I let him win. Sorry I hurt you to save you. She wiped at her tears, but I'm not sorry I tried. These last few weeks with you were the only real moments of my entire life. You showed me what freedom tastes like, and even if I can't have it, I can still give it to someone. Valentina leaned closer to the camera. Everything in these boxes is yours now. Copies of everything my father has done. Every crime, every victim, every dirty deal. It's enough to destroy his entire empire, enough to put him and every captain, including Carlo, away forever. I want you to take it to the FBI. I want you to burn it all down. And David, her expression, hardened with something fierce and beautiful. I want you to get Lucia out. Use this as leverage. Tell them you'll testify if they grant you protective custody and legal guardianship of my sister. She deserves a real life, someone who will love her without conditions, someone like you. I know this is asking everything from you. I know you just want to be invisible to be safe. But you're the only person I trust with this, the only person I trust with her. Valentina smiled through her tears. Build her that butterfly garden, David, the one you promised Emma. And when Lucia watches the monarchs fly, tell her it's from her big sister. Tell her I loved her. Tell her I tried. The video shifted. Valentina looked directly into the camera with devastating intensity. And David, don't let me waste your life. Don't let what happened to us make you invisible again. You're so much more than you think you are. You saved me even if I couldn't stay saved. That matters. You matter. I have to go wedding rehearsal in an hour, and if I'm late, there will be questions. She touched the screen like she could touch him through it. Ti amo, David Chen, sempre, I love you, always. The video ended. David sat in the storage unit for an hour, not moving, just breathing, thinking. Valentina had given him a choice. He could take these documents to the FBI, could testify, could bring down the entire Russo organization, but doing so would put a target on his back forever, would mean protective custody, new identity, a life of looking over his shoulder, would mean stepping into the light as a witness, a whistleblower, someone who mattered. Or he could burn the documents, walk away, return to his invisible life, stay safe, stay small, let Valentina's sacrifice mean nothing. Don't let me waste your life. David thought about Emma, about the butterfly garden they'd never built, about the promise he'd made to a 7-year-old girl who believed her father could do anything. He thought about Lucia, trapped in a facility, painting pictures no one would ever see, humming songs no one would ever hear. He thought about Valentina, walking toward an SUV, choosing his survival over her freedom. And he realized something. Staying invisible wasn't surviving. It was just dying slowly enough that nobody noticed. David Chen had spent 3 years being nobody. Maybe it was time to be someone again. He called the FBI from a payphone, old school, untraceable. My name is David Chen, and I have evidence that will bring down the Russo crime family, but I have conditions. The agent on the other end tried to control the conversation, but David cut him off. I'll testify in exchange for full protective custody for myself and legal guardianship of Lucia Russo, currently in state care upstate. Non-negotiable. You have 1 hour to decide. After that, these documents disappear forever. They called back in 45 minutes. We accept. A good one more thing. I need you to stop a wedding. The wedding was scheduled for Saturday afternoon at St. Patrick's Cathedral, the society event of the season. Vincent Russo had spared no expense. Thousands of white roses, a string quartet, champagne that cost more per bottle than most people's monthly rent. Valentina wore a dress that cost $50,000 and felt like a burial shroud. She stood in the bridal suite, surrounded by handlers and stylists, and felt nothing. She'd perfected the art of dissociation over the past 3 weeks. Her body was here, going through the motions, but her mind, her heart, was in a parking lot in West Virginia, watching the only man she'd ever loved bleed on the ground while she destroyed him with words. And she'd done it to save his life, but the cost was her soul. 5 minutes, someone announced. Valentina looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back was a perfect stranger, beautiful, composed, empty. This is your life now. She told her reflection, accept it. The door opened. Her father entered, looking distinguished in his tuxedo. Your beautiful sweetheart. Thank you, father. I know these past weeks have been difficult, but you'll see Carlo is a good match. You'll have everything you need, security, status, children if you want them. What if I don't want any of it? Vincent's expression hardened. Then you'll learn to want it. That's what adults do. They accept reality. Is that what Mother did? Accepted reality. Her father's hand twitched, the only sign she'd hit a nerve. Your mother loved me. She died of cancer while you built an empire on blood. Did she accept that reality too? Valentina. I'm going to make you a promise, father. Her voice was calm, almost pleasant. I'll marry Carlo. I'll smile for the cameras. I'll be the perfect daughter. But someday, maybe next month, maybe next year, maybe 10 years from now, I will destroy you. I will take everything you've built and burn it to ash, and you'll know it was me. Vincent stared at his daughter, seeing her, really seeing her, perhaps for the first time. You hate me that much. I love you that much, and I hate what you've turned me into. So yes, I'll destroy you, because it's the only way I'll ever be free. Before Vincent could respond, chaos erupted outside the suite. Shouting, running footsteps, someone screaming, FBI. The door burst open. Federal agents poured in, guns drawn. Vincent Russo, you're under arrest for racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder. Vincent's face went white. This is a wedding. You can't. We have warrants for you, Carlo Messina, and 15 other members of your organization. The lead agent turned to Valentina. Ms. Russo, you need to come with us. You're not under arrest, but we need your statement. Valentina stood frozen, her mind unable to process what was happening. I don't understand. Your evidence, ma'am, the documents you compiled. David Chen brought them to us. David. The name hit like a defibrillator to a stopped heart. He's alive, she whispered. Very much so, and currently in protective custody with your sister Lucia, who he's been granted temporary guardianship of pending formal proceedings. He testified before a grand jury yesterday, every word on video. It's over, Ms. Russo. Your father's empire is done. Valentina looked at her father, this man who'd controlled her entire life, who'd seemed invincible, immortal, inevitable. Now he was just an old man in handcuffs, staring at his daughter with something like betrayal. You did this, Vincent said. You gave him the information. I gave him a choice, Valentina corrected. He's the one who was brave enough to use it. You've destroyed your own family. No, father, I've freed us. The agents led Vincent away. Through the window, Valentina could see the wedding guests being questioned, photographers capturing everything, the perfect society. An event devolving into scandal. The light agent handed her a phone. Mr. Chen said to give you this if we found you in time. Valentina took it with shaking hands. One text message. I'm at St. Vincent's Hospital with Lucia. We're building something. Come home. She didn't change out of her wedding dress, didn't grab her purse or her phone or any of the 1,000 expensive things that filled her life. Valentina Russo walked out of St. Patrick's Cathedral in a $50,000 dress, climbed into an FBI vehicle, and left her old life behind forever. St. Vincent's Hospital wasn't where Valentina expected her life to begin. The FBI agent dropped her at the entrance, still in her wedding dress, mascara smudged from tears she didn't remember crying. People stared as she rushed through the lobby, this bride who'd run from the altar, but she didn't care. Room 412. The agent had given her the number. Valentina stopped outside the door, her hand trembling on the handle. What if David didn't want to see her? What if bringing down her father's empire was closure, not a beginning? What if? As she opened the door, the room was smaller than she expected. Afternoon sunlight poured through the window, illuminating two figures at a table by the bed. David sat with Lucia, both bent over sheets of paper covered in paint. Lucia hummed her endless melody, adding swirls of color with complete absorption. David watched her with patient attention, occasionally offering a different brush or color. He looked up and their eyes met. For a moment, nobody moved. The world held its breaths. Then David stood slowly, carefully, like he was afraid she might vanish. Valentina. Her name in his voice broke something open in her chest. I'm so sorry for what I said, for hurting you. I was trying to save. I know, he crossed the room in 3 steps. I know why you did it, and I'd have done the same thing. You came for me anyway. Even afters. Especially after he stopped just inches away, close enough to touch but waiting for permission. You gave me the tools to fight, the courage to matter again. Did you really think I'd waste that? Valentina launched herself into his arms. He caught her, holding her like she was precious and breakable and vital all at once. She buried her face in his neck and sobbed, 3 weeks of grief and fear and desperate hope pouring out. I thought I'd lost you, she choked out. I thought I'd destroyed us. You can't destroy something real. You can only test it. He pulled back enough to see her face, wiping tears with his thumbs. And we passed, barely messily, but we passed. Behind them, Lucia made a small sound, curious, not alarmed. Valentina turned, still in David's arms. Lucia, she breathed. Her sister looked up from her painting, studying Valentina with those careful eyes. Then, slowly, Lucia smiled, that same gap-toothed grin from the photograph, a little older now but no less radiant. A pretty dress, Lucia said. Softly, first words Valentina had heard from her in years. Valentina laughed through her tears. Thank you, sweetheart. I was supposed to get married today. Did you? Lucia asked, interested. No, I chose something better. David's arm tightened around her waist. Lucia and I have been talking about butterflies. I showed her Emma's garden plans. She wants to help build it. Valentina walked to the table, kneeling beside her sister's chair. Up close, she could see that Lucia's painting wasn't abstract after all. It was butterflies, dozens of them in impossible colors, flying off the page. "These are beautiful," Valentina said. Lucia hummed happily, adding more wings. "David says butterflies are brave. They change everything to fly." "He's right, they are brave." Valentina looked up at David. "What happens now? With the FBI, with my father, with everything?" David pulled up a chair, sitting so they formed a small circle, family by choice rather than blood. "Your father and Carlo are being held without bail. The documents you compiled, plus my testimony, are enough for convictions. The FBI says the trial will probably take a year, maybe more, but it's over. The organization is done. Land us. We're in protective custody for now. The government will relocate us when it's safe. New identities, new city. Lucia comes with us. The guardianship is temporary, but the FBI agreed to help make it permanent." He hesitated. "If that's what you want." "What I want," Valentina felt fresh tears rising. "David, you gave me my sister back. You destroyed the monster who's controlled my entire life. You kept every promise even when I gave you permission to walk away. What I want is to spend the rest of my life proving I deserve you." "You don't have to prove anything." "Then let me try anyway." She took his hand, this man who'd taught her to breathe, to hope, to fight. "Where are they sending us?" "Small town in Oregon, population 8,000, mountains, quiet. They have a good school system for Lucia, and there's a community college where I could teach again, if I wanted to." "Do you want to?" David looked at Lucia, then at Valentina. "Yeah, I think I do. I think I want to be the person I was before everything broke, or maybe someone better." "And me, who do I get to be?" "Anyone you want. That's the point of freedom. You get to choose." Valentina thought about a lifetime of being Vincent Russo's daughter, of performing, of pretending, of suffocating in silk and diamonds while people died in the shadows. "I want to be an architect," she said suddenly. "I wanted to be one when I was a kid, before my father said it was impractical. I want to design houses, real houses for real people, places that feel like home." David smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his whole face. "Then that's what you'll be." "What would you do if you could start your life over completely?" Share your dreams in the comments. Maybe speaking them out loud is the first step to making them real. Lucia tugged on Valentina's dress. "You can help me paint." "I'd love to." They spent the afternoon like that, three broken people making art together, planning butterfly gardens and impossible futures. The FBI agent assigned to them checked in every hour, but mostly left them alone. Outside, the world continued its chaos. News crews reporting the collapse of the Russo Empire, journalists digging into Vincent's crimes, lawyers filing motions and countermotions. But in room 412, there was only peace. 6 months later. The house was small, barely 900 square feet, but it sat on 2 acres of land with a view of the mountains. Valentina had spent weeks sketching additions, a sunroom for Lucia's art, an office for David's lesson plans, a master bedroom with windows that faced the sunrise. But first, they'd built the butterfly garden. It occupied the entire south side of the property, native wildflowers, milkweed, butterfly bushes in careful arrangements. In the center stood a small stone marker with two names carved into it, Sarah and Emma Chen, forever loved, never forgotten. Lucia had insisted on adding something, so beneath the names was a butterfly she'd painted, preserved under resin, bright blue wings spreading toward flight. David knelt in the garden now, Lucia beside him, both checking on the chrysalises they'd hung from wooden stakes. It was late spring, and the monarchs would emerge any day. Valentina watched from the porch, coffee warming her hands. She wore jeans and an old sweatshirt, no designer labels, no armor, just comfortable clothes for a comfortable life. Zelina Martinez, her new identity read, married to Thomas Chen, sister to Lucia Martinez Chen, student at the community college's architecture program, volunteer at the local library, completely, unremarkably ordinary. And gloriously free. "Val," David called, "come quicks." She set down her coffee and ran to the garden. David pointed at one of the chrysalises. It was moving, splitting open. Slowly, impossibly, a butterfly emerged. Wet wings, fragile body, barely clinging to life. But alive and fighting. "She needs time," David said softly, his arm around Lucia. "The wings have to dry before she can fly, but she'll make it. They always do." Lucia hummed entranced. "Is she scared?" "Probably, but she's brave anyway. That's the most important kind of courage, being terrified and doing it anyway." Valentina slipped her hand into David's free one. "How long until she flies?" "Few hours. Want to wait with her?" "Always." They sat in the garden as the afternoon sun moved across the sky. More butterflies emerged, one, then three, then a dozen. Each one fought its way out of the chrysalis. Each one paused and trembled and dried its wings. And then, one by one, they flew. Lucia laughed pure, delighted sound as monarchs spiraled around them. "They're dancing." "They're celebrating," Valentina said. "They worked so hard to change, and now they get to fly." David looked at her and she saw everything in his eyes, grief for what they'd lost, gratitude for what they'd found, hope for what they were building. "Kind of like us," he said. "Yeah, kind of like us." 1 year later. The trial had finally ended. Vincent Russo received 4 consecutive life sentences. Carlo Messina got 3. 15 other captains and soldiers were convicted on various charges. The empire was officially dismantled, its assets seized, its victims finally vindicated. Valentina had testified via video, her face obscured, her voice disguised, but her words devastating. She looked at her father through the camera and felt nothing, no anger, no grief, just relief that this chapter was finally, irrevocably closed. The FBI called with the news on a Tuesday morning. Valentina and David sat at their kitchen table, still small, still modest, but theirs, and absorbed the information. "And so, it's really over," Valentina said. "It's really over. We don't have to hide anymore. We can still be careful. Your father has loyalists, and prison doesn't stop everyone, but the organization itself, dead and buried." Valentina nodded slowly. Then, surprising herself, she started to laugh. David raised an eyebrow. What? I'm just realizing I spent 26 years trapped in that life, thought I'd never escape, and now I've been free longer than I've been a prisoner, and I barely think about it anymore. The nightmares are gone. The fear is gone. It's just gone. That's healing. That's you, she reached across the table. You and Lucia, this life we built. I never thought, her voice caught, I never thought I'd feel safe. Actually, genuinely safe. David brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. I never thought I'd feel alive again. Guess we're both full of surprises. From upstairs came the sound of Lucia singing. She did that now, actual words. And melodies instead of just humming. David had enrolled her in music therapy, and she discovered she had perfect pitch. Her voice, untrained but pure, floated through the house like birdsong. She's so different from a year ago, Valentina said. More present, more joyful. She feels safe too, probably for the first time in her life. David stood, pulling Valentina up with him. Come on, I have something to show you. He led her outside to the garden. The butterflies were gone, migrated south for winter, but the garden remained, dormant but alive beneath the surface. Next to Emma's memorial stone stood a new addition. A second marker, smaller, carved with careful letters. Vincent Russo's daughter died here. Valentina Chen was born. I know you don't use your old name anymore, David said quietly, but I thought she deserved a grave too, the person you had to be, so we can honor her sacrifice and move forward. Valentina stared at the stone, tears streaming freely. When did you do this? Last week, Lucia helped me pick the spot. It's perfect, she knelt, touching the carved letters. Goodbye, Valentina Russo. Thank you for being strong enough to die so I could live. David knelt beside her. She was brave, even at the end. She was terrified. Brave and terrified aren't opposites, they're partners. He kissed her temple, just like us. They stayed in the garden until sunset, holding each other while the world turned and the seasons changed, and life continued its patient, relentless march towards spring. 2 years later. Again, the little boy shouted, chasing a butterfly with a net nearly as big as he was. Valentina laughed, adjusting the baby girl on her hip. Careful, Marco, gentle with the net. David scooped up their son before he could trip over a flower bed. Easy, buddy. We're trying to help them, not capture them. Marco, 2.5 years old, with David's eyes and Valentina's stubborn chin, pouted. Have a good school system for Lucia, and there's a community college where I could teach again, if I wanted to. Do you want to? David looked at Lucia, then at Valentina. Yeah, I think I do. I think I want to be the person I was before everything broke, or maybe someone better. And me, who do I get to be? Anyone you want, that's the point of freedom. You get to choose. Valentina thought about a lifetime of being Vincent Russo's daughter, of performing, of pretending, of suffocating in silk and diamonds while people died in the shadows. I want to be an architect, she said suddenly. I wanted to be one when I was a kid, before my father said it was impractical. I want to design houses, real houses for real people, places that feel like home. David smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his whole face. Then that's what you'll be. What would you do if you could start your life over completely? Share your dreams in the comments. Maybe speaking them out loud is the first step to making them real. Lucia tugged on Valentina's dress. You can help me paint. I'd love to. They spent the afternoon like that, three broken people making art together, planning butterfly gardens and impossible futures. The FBI agent assigned to them checked in every hour, but mostly left them alone. Outside, the world continued its chaos. News crews reporting the collapse of the Russo Empire, journalists digging into Vincent's crimes, lawyers filing motions and countermotions. But in room 412, there was only peace. 6 months later. The house was small, barely 900 square feet, but it sat on 2 acres of land with a view of the mountains. Valentina had spent weeks sketching additions, a sunroom for Lucia's art, an office for David's lesson plans, a master bedroom with windows that faced the sunrise. But first, they'd built the butterfly garden. It occupied the entire south side of the property, native wildflowers, milkweed. Butterfly bushes in careful arrangements. In the center stood a small stone marker with 2 names carved into it, Sarah and Emma Chen, forever loved, never forgotten. Lucia had insisted on adding something, so beneath the names was a butterfly she'd painted, preserved under resin, bright blue wings spreading toward flight. David knelt in the garden now, Lucia beside him, both checking on the chrysalises they'd hung from wooden stakes. It was late spring, and the monarchs would emerge any day. Valentina watched from the porch, coffee warming her hands. She wore jeans and an old sweatshirt, no designer labels, no armor, just comfortable clothes for a comfortable life. Zelina Martinez, her new identity read, married to Thomas Chen, sister to Lucia Martinez Chen, student at the community college's architecture program, volunteer at the local library, completely, unremarkably ordinary. And gloriously free. Val, David called, come quicks. She set down her coffee and ran to the garden. David pointed at one of the chrysalises. It was moving, splitting open. Slowly, impossibly, a butterfly emerged. Wet wings, fragile body, barely clinging to life. But alive and fighting. She needs time, David said softly, his arm around Lucia. The wings have to dry before she can fly, but she'll make it. They always do. Lucia hummed entranced. Is she scared? Probably, but she's brave anyway. That's the most important kind of courage, being terrified and doing it anyway. Valentina slipped her hand into David's free one. How long until she flies? Few hours. Want to wait with her? Always. They sat in the garden as the afternoon sun moved across the sky. More butterflies emerged, 1, then 3, then a dozen. Each one fought its way out of the chrysalis. Each one paused and trembled and dried its wings. And then, one by one, they flew. Lucia laughed pure, delighted sound as monarchs spiraled around them. They're dancing. They're celebrating, Valentina said. They worked so hard to change, and now they get to fly. David looked at her and she saw everything in his eyes: grief for what they'd lost, gratitude for what they'd found, hope for what they were building. "Kind of like us," he said. "Yeah, kind of like us." 1 year later. The trial had finally ended. Vincent Russo received 4 consecutive life sentences. Carlo Messina got 3. 15 other captains and soldiers were convicted on various charges. The empire was officially dismantled, its assets seized, its victims finally vindicated. Valentina had testified via video, her face obscured, her voice disguised, but her words devastating. She looked at her father through the camera and felt nothing, no anger, no grief, just relief that this chapter was finally, irrevocably closed. The FBI called with the news on a Tuesday morning. Valentina and David sat at their kitchen table, still small, still modest, but theirs, and absorbed the information. "And so, it's really over," Valentina said. "It's really over. We don't have to hide anymore. We can still be careful. Your father has loyalists, and prison doesn't stop everyone, but the organization itself, dead and buried." Valentina nodded slowly. Then, surprising herself, she started to laugh. David raised an eyebrow. "What?" "I'm just realizing I spent 26 years trapped in that life, thought I'd never escape, and now I've been free longer than I've been a prisoner, and I barely think about it anymore. The nightmares are gone. The fear is gone. It's just gone." "That's healing." "That's you," she reached across the table. "You and Lucia, this life we built. I never thought," her voice caught, "I never thought I'd feel safe. Actually, genuinely safe." David brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. "I never thought I'd feel alive again. Guess we're both full of surprises." From upstairs came the sound of Lucia singing. She did that now, actual words and melodies instead of just humming. David had enrolled her in music therapy, and she discovered she had perfect pitch. Her voice, untrained but pure, floated through the house like birdsong. "She's so different from a year ago," Valentina said. "More present, more joyful. She feels safe too, probably for the first time in her life." David stood, pulling Valentina up with him. "Come on, I have something to show you." He led her outside to the garden. The butterflies were gone, migrated south for winter, but the garden remained, dormant but alive beneath the surface. Next to Emma's memorial stone stood a new addition. A second marker, smaller, carved with careful letters. "Vincent Russo's daughter died here. Valentina Chen was born." "I know you don't use your old name anymore," David said quietly, "but I thought she deserved a grave too, the person you had to be, so we can honor her sacrifice and move forward." Valentina stared at the stone, tears streaming freely. "When did you do this?" "Last week, Lucia helped me pick the spot." "It's perfect." She knelt, touching the carved letters. "Goodbye, Valentina Russo. Thank you for being strong enough to die so I could live." David knelt beside her. She was brave, even at the end. She was terrified. Brave and terrified aren't opposites, they're partners. He kissed her temple, just like us. They stayed in the garden until sunset, holding each other while the world turned and the seasons changed, and life continued its patient, relentless march toward spring. 2 years later. Again, the little boy shouted, chasing a butterfly with a net nearly as big as he was. Valentina laughed, adjusting the baby girl on her hip. Careful, Marco, gentle with the net. David scooped up their son before he could trip over a flower bed. Easy, buddy. We're trying to help them, not capture them. Marco, 2.5 years old, with David's eyes and Valentina's stubborn chin, pouted. Dramatically, but I want to see. Then sit still and they'll come to you. Butterflies like patient people. It was a lie, but a useful one. Marco plopped down in the grass, net forgotten, and within minutes, a painted lady landed on his outstretched hand. His eyes went huge with wonder. Mama looked. I see, baby. Isn't she beautiful? Their daughter, Elena Grace, 4 months old, gurgled agreement from Valentina's arms. She'd been a surprise, an unexpected gift after doctors said Valentina's years of stress had probably damaged her fertility. But life, it seemed, specialized in surprises. Lucia emerged from the house carrying a tray of lemonade. She was 14 now, taller and more confident, though still quiet. She'd started high school last fall and joined the art club, had even made friends, real ones, who came over and stayed for dinner and treated her like she was normal. Because here she was. David, Lucia said, someone's here to see you. The car had pulled up the driveway, expensive, out of place in their modest neighborhood. Valentina tensed automatically, old instincts rising, but David squeezed her shoulder. It's okay, I know who it is. A man stepped out, 50s, military bearing, kind face. He walked toward them with the careful courtesy of someone entering sacred space. Lieutenant Chen, he said, extending his hand. Been a long time. David shook it firmly. Colonel, didn't expect to see you out here. Probably should have called first, but I was in the area, and the colonel looked around at the garden, the children, Valentina and Lucia. I heard you landed on your feet. More than that, I landed somewhere better than where I started. The colonel nodded slowly. I owe you an apology. After Sarah and Emma died when you were struggling, I should have done more, should have checked in, made sure you had support. I was your commanding officer, and I failed you. You didn't fail me, I failed myself, but I got back up. David gestured at his family. This is Valentina, my wife, Elena, our daughter, Marco, our son, and Lucia, our daughter. Lucia's mine and David's both, Valentina clarified, legally and in every way that matters. The colonel's eyes were suspiciously bright. You built something beautiful here, Chen. We did, together. David looked at Valentina, and the love in his gaze still made her breath catch. Turns out the secret to surviving isn't staying invisible. It's finding people worth being visible for. They invited the colonel to stay for dinner. He left 3 hours later, promising to visit again, to stay in touch, to remember that the military took care of its own, even the ones who fell and had to find new ways to stand. After he left, after the children were in bed and Lucia was in her room painting, Valentina and David returned to the garden. The evening air was cool, filled with the song of crickets and the rustle of leaves. Do you ever miss it? Valentina asked. Your Old life before everything went wrong. David considered, I miss Sarah and Emma every single day. That grief doesn't go away, I just learned to carry it differently. But my old life, the person I was before I met you, he shook his head. That guy was sleepwalking, going through the motions. You woke me up. I nearly got you killed. You gave me a reason to live. There's a difference. Valentina leaned into him, feeling his heart beat steady and strong against her back. I used to think love was weakness. That's what my father taught me, that caring about people gave them power over you. And now I think love is the only real power there is. Everything else, money, control, fear, it's all just noise. But love changes people, saves them, sets them free. Very philosophical for a Tuesday night. Now she elbowed him gently. I'm serious. So am I, he turned her to face him, his hands framing her face. Valentina Chen, formerly Russo, currently Martinez, eternally. Mine, I love you, not because you're perfect, but because you're brave enough to be imperfect, because you chose freedom over safety, because you see the invisible and give voice to the voiceless, because you make me want to be better than I am. You're already perfect. I'm really not, but with you, I'm enough, and that's everything. They kissed in the butterfly garden, surrounded by the ghosts of people they'd loved and lost, the memories of lives they'd survived, and the promise of the future they were building one day at a time. Above them, stars emerged. Below them, the earth turned. And in that small slice of Oregon, in a garden built by broken people learning to be whole, two monarchs who'd fought their way out of darkness found peace. On Lucia's 18th birthday, she received a letter from the state. Her biological father, Vincent Russo, had died in prison heart attack, sudden and final. He'd left no will, no message, no acknowledgement of the daughter he'd institutionalized. Lucia read the letter once, then handed it to Valentina. Do you want to go to the funeral? Valentina looked at the paper, the official notification of her father's death, and felt nothing but a distant sadness for the man he could have been. No, but if you want to, I'll come with you. Lucia shook her head. He's not my father, David is. In the living room, David was teaching Marco calculus while Elena practiced piano. The sounds of family, bickering and laughter, and the comfortable chaos of people who belonged to each other filled the house. Yeah, Valentina said, crumpling the letter. David is. They threw it away and returned to the birthday celebration. Lucia had invited 12 friends, 12 people who knew her as Lucia Martinez Chen, the talented artist with the beautiful voice and the incredible family, who had no idea she was the half-sister of a mob boss's daughter, the discarded inconvenience of a criminal empire. Because that wasn't who she was. Anymore. Just like Valentina wasn't Vincent Russo's daughter anymore. And David wasn't a broken janitor anymore. They were the Chen family, imperfect, healing, free. And they were building butterfly gardens. Although a note from the storytellers. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is choose ourselves. Choose freedom over comfort. Choose love over fear. Choose to believe that transformation is possible, even when every part of us wants to stay small and safe and invisible. David and Valentina's story reminds us that we're all capable of metamorphosis, that the chrysalis stage, where everything breaks down and rebuilding seems impossible, is exactly where wings are formed. If you're in your chrysalis right now, if you're breaking apart and wondering if you'll ever fly, hold on. The transformation is painful, but it's not permanent. And on the other side of that pain is freedom. What's one brave choice you can make today? What chrysalis are you ready to break out of? Share in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find their own courage. Thank you for reading. Thank you for believing in second chances. Thank you for choosing hope. Now go build your butterfly gardens.